provide you with the lowest per GB rates, night or day. SLT 4G, driving you ever forward.
No authority. Attorney General informs the Supreme Court that it cannot hear petitions against President's order to dissolve Parliament. Calls of resignation. UNP calls President to resign if fails to adhere the Constitution. Former PM hails the public for fighting when democracy is at stake.
It's a crisis which has made us truly Sri Lanka.
Reveal the truth. UPFA parliamentarian Udega Manpila questions the basis of TNA-UNP agreement.
What are the compelling reasons to change their stand? Citizens of this country have a right to know what are the reasons for the TNA to change their stand.
Tough conditions. CBSL governor says Sri Lanka's progress to sustainable external debt management has slowed.
Political developments have increased the risk premium. We have to undertake significant borrowing. The terms will be tighter, the cost will be higher.
බයික් එකක් ගත්තොත් ෆෝන් එකක්. ඔව් තෝරාගත් Yamaha බයික් මාදිලි සඳහා රුපියල් 40000ක් දක්වා වටිනා ස්මාර්ට් ෆෝන් එකක් නොමිලේ. ඉක්මන් කරන්න නොවැම්බර් 30 දක්වා පමණයි. කොන්දේසි සහිතයි. අමතන්න 0117 699 699 AMW තින් පමණයි.
Good evening. Bringing you news from across Sri Lanka and around the world on Other Derana 24/7. First at 9, I'm Indi Variyamwat. We begin with developments in Sri Lanka's political upheaval. The Supreme Court today concluded a second day of hearing fundamental rights petitions against the President's move to dissolve Parliament. During today's hearing, the Attorney General made submissions to the 7-judge bench of the Supreme Court headed by the Chief Justice, Nalin Pereira. The Attorney General stated that the Supreme Court does not have the legal authority to hear the petitions filed against the decision on dissolution of Parliament. On November 13th, the Supreme Court granted leave to proceed with the fundamental rights petitions filed by several political parties, including the United National Party, seeking a court order nullifying the presidential proclamation that dissolved Parliament. Petitions will be taken up for argument until tomorrow.
Fundamental rights petitions filed by several political parties including the United National Party, Tamil National Alliance, Janata Vimukti Peramuna and Sri Lanka Muslim Congress against the President's move to dissolve Parliament were heard for a second day today, with the Attorney General Jayantha Jayasuriya making lengthy submissions. Attorney General stated that the fundamental rights petitions filed against the dissolution of Parliament charged that President Maithripala Sirisena had violated the constitution of the country and thereby argued that Article 32 of the Constitution has clearly stated what measures should be taken in a situation where the President has breached provisions of the Constitution. Making further submissions, Attorney General Jayantha Jayasuriya said in such situation, a motion should be passed in Parliament against the President, which should eventually be directed to the Supreme Court. Moreover, he pointed out that the Constitution has provisions to remove the President in such an instant by bringing a no-confidence motion against him through parliamentarians appointed by people. Attorney General Jayantha Jayasuriya went on to say that fundamental rights petitions cannot thereby be filed outside this process. He went on to say that if the President has breached the provisions of the Constitution, it can only be taken up in Parliament. The AG also clarified that according to the Constitution, the President has the mandate to dissolve Parliament under Article 2 of 33, which doesn't have a connection to Article 1 of 70 to Article 7 of 70. After the Attorney General made submissions for around 5 hours, attorneys representing the interim petitioners began their submissions. Representing the chairman of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Professor G.L. Piris, Attorney Sanjeeva Jayawardena stated that according to Article 2 of 62, as per the Sinhala language copy of the Constitution, President is vested with the mandate to dissolve Parliament before the end of its tenure. The fundamental petitions will be taken up for hearing tomorrow as well, before the Supreme Court opinion is announced on Friday.
And UPFA parliamentarian Lakshman Yapa Abewardena states that the 19th Amendment to the Constitution will undergo a change under a government established by the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. He made this comment at a media briefing at the party office today.
The launch of the official news website of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna and its media centre took place under the patronage of its founder, Basil Rajapaksa.
දහනමෙනි ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවට අපි ඡන්දෙ දුන්නේ මේ කොමිෂන් සභාපත් කළා මේ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදය ගැන මිනිස්සු ඒ වෙලාවේ බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන දේ ඉෂ්ට වෙයි කියලා. අද බැලුවා මිනිස්සුගේ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදයක් නැහැ. මිනිස්සුගේ ඡන්ද අයිතියක් නැති වෙලා තිනවා. දහනමෙනි ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාව නිසා. ඒ නිසා දහනමෙනි ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාව අපි આવොත් වෙනස් කරන්න වෙනවා. අනිවාර්යයෙන්.
Another media briefing was convened today by the members of the UPFA.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුව එදා කියපු තත්ත්වයමයි නීති විරෝධී. ඒ නීති විරෝධී පාර්ලිමේන්තුව තුළ තමයි ඔවුන් මේ සියලුම සාකච්ඡාවන් මේ වෙනකොටත් ගෙනියන්නේ. විශේෂයෙන් මට ආරංචි විදියට අද රාජ්‍ය මාධ්‍යවල සභාපතිවරුන් දවල් 12 වෙනකොට පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට කැඳවලා තියෙනවා.
ඒක උනත් දීපු එක වැරදි. අභියාචනාධිකරණයකට බලයක් නැහැ. ආණ්ඩුවක ක්‍රියාත්මක භාවය නවත්වන්න. අපිට කිසිම සැකයක් නැහැ. ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණයේදී මේ අභියාචනාධිකරණ දුන්නු තීන්දුව අවලංගු වෙනවා නිසකයි.
UPFA parliamentarian Udaya Gammampila questions the basis on which the Tamil National Alliance decided to support the reappointment of United National Party leader Ranil Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister. Speaking at a media briefing in Colombo today, parliamentarian Gammampila demanded the UNP and the TNA to disclose the contents of any agreement they have reached to this end.
The Court of Appeal has not declared that Honorable Mahinda Rajapaksa is not the Prime Minister. He is still the Prime Minister. What court has said was he cannot function as the Prime Minister. In this backdrop, the President cannot appoint new Prime Minister as well as a Cabinet of Ministers. Because court has not declared that Cabinet stands dissolved and Prime Minister, the office of Prime Minister falls vacant. Because of this situation, very peculiar situation, President has no choice but to function as one-man cabinet. No court in any country at any time has restrained Prime Minister and the Cabinet of Ministers from functioning or performing their duties. The TNA had been reiterating that they would not support the UNP. Although they support the no-confidence motion against the government, they would not support the UNP to appoint Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe as the Prime Minister. All of a sudden, they have changed their stand and have now declared that they would support Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe to be the Prime Minister. What are the compelling reasons to change their stand? Therefore, citizens of this country have a right to know what are the contents of this agreement and what are the reasons for the TNA to change their stand all of a sudden. Therefore, we urge both parties, namely the UNP and the TNA, to disclose the agreement reached by them.
The Right to Information Commission has directed the Presidential Secretariat to disclose the declaration of assets and liabilities of Ranil Wickremesinghe in his role as Prime Minister from 2015 and 2016. Transparency International Sri Lanka said today that the order was made pursuant to an initial request it filed on the 3rd of February in 2017. While welcoming the order, the anti-graft group encouraged citizens to use asset declarations as a tool to publicly examine allegations of wealth accumulation and to counter corruption.
Transparency International Sri Lanka had filed right to information applications on February 3, 2017, seeking access to the declarations of assets and liabilities of President Maithripala Sirisena for 2015 and 2016 and Ranil Wickremesinghe in his role as Prime Minister for 2015 and 2016.
It is with great pleasure that I hold in my hand here the order of the Right to Information Commission ordering the Presidential Secretariat to release the asset declaration of Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe. This emanates from a right to information request made in February of 2017. The asset declaration of the Prime Minister and members of the Cabinet are filed with the Office of the President. In the past, on using this, was released from the Presidential Secretariat using the old Declaration of Assets and Liabilities law. There were many secrecy provisions under this order here under the Right to Information Commission is anchored in the Right to Information Act. The Right to Information Commission has confirmed that the law as found in the RTI Act supersedes the secrecy provisions of the Declaration of Assets and Liabilities law.
This decision would enable TISL to publicly release the asset declaration once received from the Office of the President, as it has been obtained under the RTI Act.
Having asset declarations in the public space is essential because very frequently we hear about different allegations of accumulations of wealth of public officials. But when we see an asset declaration, we can now have a crucial tool in fighting corruption. This is about having that information in the public's hands. Having information in the public domain is the most crucial tool in fighting corruption.
Meanwhile, on TISL's request for access to the asset declaration of President Maithripala Sirisena for 2015 and 2016, the Right to Information Commission held that the Declaration of Assets and Liabilities law does not include the position of President. However, the Commission has noted that the increasing trend among heads of state is to proactively disclose their assets and liabilities to foster a practice of transparency and public accountability.
Parliament today convened without the participation of UPFA parliamentarians once again, although a proposal was to be tabled to request the President to take further measures on the no-confidence motion. A debate to adjourn Parliament took place instead.
A party leaders' meeting was convened as usual under the Speaker at the Parliamentary Complex today, but it did not have the representation of the United People's Freedom Alliance. During the meeting, although a proposal was to be tabled in Parliament requesting the President to take further measures on the no-confidence motions that were passed during the previous sessions, party leaders arrived at the consensus to cancel it, and they decided to take up the adjournment debate instead. Meanwhile, a meeting of UNP parliamentarians was held at the Parliamentary Complex under the patronage of its leader Ranil Wickremesinghe. In the meantime, although UPFA parliamentarians decided to boycott today's session, one of the UPFA members, parliamentarian KUMARA WELGAMA, was seen at the parliamentary premises.
For this, but their attention is not on this issue.
The parliamentarian of the opposition talked to media before going inside the House of Parliament.
We're going to take legal action against Mahinda Rajapaksa and his cabinet for misusing public property. The public officers who are involved too have to face repercussions. I should stress the public servants to work according to the law because there is no government at present. I think neither of these parties have a right to establish a government because both parties have contributed to this calamity. Therefore, a proper commission should be established to take action against those who are culpable. What is important is not who is going to be the Prime Minister. I'm doing whatever I can to bring these two groups together to go for an election.
Today's parliamentary session started at 10:30 in the morning, with UPFA parliamentarians once more boycotting the session.
Yesterday, the executive said that he will not listen to what we have to say, even if all the 225 MPs of Parliament agree. This is an insult to the Parliament. According to the Constitution, the executive should be liable to the Parliament. In such a scenario, I ask you what the legal hindrance is for you to not allow Ranil Wickremesinghe to sit in the seat reserved for the Prime Minister. According to the prevailing legal situation, you can give an order as the Speaker of Parliament to all the chairmen and secretaries to refrain from working in their offices. Thank you. There is a legality to some of the things you highlighted. I will pay attention to that. Everyone in Parliament are speaking about relevant and irrelevant things without postponing it. Honourable Speaker, don't allow the chamber to function like this. There are several MPs. We will give them 5 minutes each to speak and conclude. Then we'll conclude this. There is no use of a debate to adjourn Parliament.
The Office of the Speaker, issuing a communique, has addressed the allegations that state media are being biased. In order to inquire on this matter and the suspension of the live broadcast of parliamentary sessions by Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation, the Secretary to the Ministry of Mass Media, Sunil Hettiarachchi, and SLBC Chairman Somarathna Dissanayake was summoned this afternoon. The communique reads at the meeting that the Speaker pointed out the need to work independently and responsibly during the existing political crisis. He also stated that the Parliament is highly concerned about the functioning of state media institutions, Sri Lanka Rupawahini Corporation, Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation, Independent Television Network and Associated Newspapers of Ceylon Limited. Accordingly, the Secretary to the Ministry of Mass Media stated that the attention of the state media institutions will be immediately directed to the facts pointed out by the Speaker. Additionally, the chairman of SLBC, who expressed his regret for suspending the live broadcast of the Parliament, confirmed that the situation will be rectified as soon as possible. And the United National Party today called for the resignation of President Maithripala Sirisena if he fails to adhere to the Constitution. This came as a response to the statement made by the President that he will not appoint Ranil Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister even if he commands the confidence of all 225 parliamentarians.
The President has said that he would not appoint Ranil Wickremesinghe as the Prime Minister even if all 225 MPs vote in favour of him. In our country, the Prime Minister is appointed according to the preference of the Parliament majority. If Ranil Wickremesinghe commands the majority in Parliament, the President has to follow the due proceedings and appoint him as the Premier. He cannot be adamant to the point that he would not appoint him at any cost. If the President is turning a blind eye towards the Constitution, saying that he cannot appoint Ranil Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister, he should resign. That is the only solution. President Maithripala Sirisena, whom we appointed to lead the government of good governance, is now wielding the sword of hatred. But as long as he continues that, it is the public who will fall victim.
The organisation Professionals for Democracy organised an open conversation today, which was also attended by leader of the UNP Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Which has made us truly Sri Lankan, where we have all got together, not thinking of race, caste or creed. It's an occasion when we have a fundamental right of democracy at stake and we are fighting together.
On to today's court proceedings. The Chief of Defence Staff, Admiral Ravindra WIJEGUNARATNE, was released on a personal bail of 2 sureties amounting to 1 million rupees each by the Fort Magistrate. The case against him was held for allegedly protecting the chief suspect in the high-profile murder of 11 youths in 2008 and 2009. The former Navy commander is accused of aiding and abetting Lieutenant Commander Chandana Hettiarachchi, also known as Navy Sampath, the main suspect in the abduction, unlawful detention and murder of 11 youths during the period. Investigators say WIJEGUNARATNE helped Chandana Prasad, a Navy intelligence officer and chief suspect in the murders, escape arrest. WIJEGUNARATNE was granted bail on strict conditions, warning not to threaten any of the witnesses involved in the case. The magistrate also said that bail will be revoked if the bail conditions are violated. Protests were launched by a number of protests and marches were organised island-wide, calling for general elections and for the people to exercise their franchise.
A protest march organised by the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna was held in Polonnaruwa today. Another public protest was organised in Ambilipitiya calling for general elections. Vasudeva Nanayakara and Pavitra Vanyarachchi also joined a protest march in Ahaliyagoda. In the meantime, another protest was held in Bentota, pressing to hold general elections. The Free Arts Guild engaged in a campaign at the Independence Square in Colombo, calling to hold a general election.
Still in local news, protests launched by the Salon Workers Congress demanding plantation companies to increase the basic wage of estate workers up to 1,000 rupees went on for a second day today. However, a large number of members of labour unions representing estate workers, including the Labour National Front, National Union of Workers, Upcountry People's Front, had reported for duty as usual. These estate workers stated that although their daily basic wage should be increased by up to 1,000 rupees, going into protest would lead to financial issues as they are likely to not receive their wages for the forthcoming month. They had reported for work as per a request made by leaders of labour unions.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back. In your business news, we take a look at the top stories. Given the political manifestation in Sri Lanka, Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. INDRAJIT KUMARASWAMY says Sri Lanka's progress to sustainable external debt management has slowed, but believes fiscal discipline will put Sri Lanka back on track. The governor was speaking at the launch of guidelines to financial literacy and entrepreneurship.
Clearly, the political developments have increased the risk premium attached to lending to Sri Lanka. So we have to undertake significant borrowing going forward, and there the terms will be tighter, the cost will be higher, the tenor is likely to be shorter. We had a plan to raise money to meet not only the immediate obligations, which include international sovereign bond maturity on the 15th of January of $1 billion and another 500 million in April. So we had plans to raise money to pay those obligations, and also the central bank had worked with the Treasury and worked out a medium-term debt management strategy. Now, we still have those strategies and we will implement them, but the cost will be more, and as I said, the maturity will be less. So our progress towards achieving sustainable external debt dynamics have been slowed down, but the situation is still manageable, provided the government maintains fiscal discipline and continues with the trajectory of fiscal consolidation they have set out. This situation is manageable.
The governor went on to comment on the decision by international rating agencies to downgrade Sri Lanka's outlook.
In my view, they should have waited till the court processes were completed and there was greater clarity on the political situation. We think it's hasty because the underlying fundamentals have not changed. There have been no significant slippage in policy, and the different indicators have not deteriorated in any material way. And that's evidenced by the fact that on the 26th of October, we were able to reach staff level agreement with the IMF on the 5th review of the extended fund facility, which really is a reflection that the IMF was satisfied with the policy direction as well as the ability to have met the various targets. So both in terms of an assessment of the performance as of the 30th of June as well as their assessment of the outlook for the economy, they felt confident enough to be ready to announce staff level agreement on that Friday the 26th. And they were going to do it on the following Monday, the 29th, but given the political developments, they've now put that on hold.
In the equity market, Colombo stocks closed lower with prices of some financial sector firms driven up sharply on speculative buying by retail traders. The all-share price index fell 0.24% to 5,997.23 today, and it had risen 1.5% last week, recording the first weekly gain in 4. Stock market turnover was 614.17 million rupees today, and foreigners sold a net 241.8 million rupees worth of stocks. And the Sri Lankan rupee closed weaker today, hit by concerns over a lingering political crisis as banks bought dollars to facilitate foreign capital outflows from rupee-denominated assets. The rupee today ended at 184 rupees and 84 cents against the US dollar. We take a look at how the Sri Lankan currency traded against other major currencies across the world.
Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
On to your news overseas. Russian President Vladimir Putin said today that Russia would be forced to respond if the United States exits the Intermediate Range Nuclear Force Arms Control Treaty. Yesterday, the United States delivered Russia a 60-day ultimatum to come clean about what Washington says is a violation of a 1987 Nuclear Arms Control Treaty, saying it would be forced to start a 6-month process of withdrawing if nothing changed.
NATO allies led by Germany pressed US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo at a meeting in Brussels to give diplomacy one last chance before Washington pulls out of the 1987 Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, fearing a new arms race in Europe. In turn, NATO foreign ministers agreed to formally declare Russia in material breach of the INF Treaty in a statement that was in support of the United States. Russia denies undertaking any such development of land-based intermediate-range cruise missile capable of carrying nuclear warheads and hitting European cities at short notice. Putin, in televised comments, said that Moscow was against the scrapping of the treaty, but that the United States had long ago decided to exit the treaty and was blaming Russia for violations in order for them to serve as a pretext.
And U.S. Special Counsel Robert Mueller's office said today that President Donald Trump's ex-National Security Advisor Michael Flynn had substantially cooperated with its probe into possible collusion between Trump's campaign team and Moscow. The Special Counsel investigating alleged Russian collusion in the 2016 U.S. election, however, will not be pursuing a jail sentence for the former National Security Advisor. Flynn has admitted lying to the FBI, but in a memo, Robert Mueller said Flynn had provided first-hand details about links between the Trump election team and Russian officials. The heavily redacted memo hints at future revelations that could trouble President Donald Trump. President Trump has called the investigation a witch hunt and denies there was any collusion between his team and Russian officials to try to secure his election victory. And in the UK, British Prime Minister Theresa May suffered embarrassing blows today at the start of 5 days of debate over her plans to leave the European Union that could determine the future of Brexit and the fate of her government. May wants to secure Parliament's approval for her deal to keep close ties with the EU after leaving in March, but opposition is fierce, with Brexit supporters and opponents alike wanting to thwart or derail her plan.
The debates and final vote on December 11th are crucial in determining how and possibly even if Britain leaves the EU as planned on March 29th in the country's biggest shift in foreign and trade policy in more than 40 years. UK Prime Minister Theresa May's plans are vulnerable to more change over the days of debate, and advice from a senior EU legal aide that Britain had the right to withdraw its Brexit notice opened yet another front in May's battle to win the approval of Parliament. So far, May is standing firm.
I believe it is the duty of us as politicians to deliver on the result of the vote that the British people gave in 2016 in the referendum. We gave them the choice. They voted to leave the EU. It is up to us to deliver that leaving of the European Union in the interests of our country.
If lawmakers do not back her deal, May said they could open the door either to Britain falling out of the EU without measures to soften the transition, or to the possibility that Brexit does not happen.
In sports, veteran Indian cricketer GAUTAM GAMBHIR has decided to bid farewell to all forms of the game as he announced his retirement in an emotional video yesterday.
I'm here to share a thought which I've been contemplating and I dare say dreading. The thought has been with me day and night. It has travelled with me on flights like an irritable excess baggage. It has accompanied me to practice sessions, mocking at me like a menacing bowler. On certain other days, it has made my dinner taste horrible. Each time I got out playing for India or KKR or Delhi Daredevils, this thought would turn into a sharp, disturbing noise and walk with me all the way to the dressing room, shouting, "It is over, Gauti." 6 games of IPL for Delhi Daredevils, it was back. And this time, it was louder than before. Perhaps my time was up. Yes, my time was up. So, here I am. After more than 15 years of cricket for my country, I want to retire from playing this beautiful game. Despite all the aches and pains, fears and failures, I won't mind a repeat of this in my next life too. But obviously, with a few more wins for India, a few more hundreds, and in the next life, maybe a few 5-wicket hauls as well.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Derana 24/7.
And on to your weather forecast for the next 24 hours. Due to low-level atmospheric disturbance in the Bay of Bengal area, moving to the southeast area of Sri Lanka, the prevailing showery condition is likely to continue over the island during the next few days as well. Showers or thunder showers will occur in the northern, eastern, north central and Uva provinces and in the Hambantota district, with heavy falls of about 100 millimeters expected in central, eastern, Uva, Sabaragamu and southern provinces. Misty conditions may occur at some places in the central Sabaragamu and western provinces during the morning hours. And here's a look at your city-by-city weather forecast for the next 24 hours. And that's all from the Derana English news broadcast for tonight. But before we go, as usual, we'd like to leave you with some visuals. And tonight we're taking you to Huluganga Falls, which is located about 30 kilometers away from Kandy. The cascading water of the Huluganga Falls, which is about 75 meters in height, sprinkles the villages of Eliadda and Arantana before flowing into the Victoria Reservoir. Enjoy these visuals. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.